Sim noises.
Okay, sorry.
Noises.
Okay, sorry. People are already seeing us. We're meaning to do this. Okay, that's good. I messed it up because we was fixing the technologies. Well, whatever. Here goes an intro. Oh, we're not doing all 2 minutes of it. We're definitely gonna skip some of this intro. Ooh. Oh, that was very loud, very abruptly. I'm sorry. I'm sorry for all of your ears. All right, let's get that leveled out. Let's pull this down. Wow, wow. Wow, wow, wow. Wow, wow. Na 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 na. Welcome everybody to a brand new episode of HOSTility. Today I'm very excited to have a guest. What's that? What's going on? You gotta go? Sorry, everybody. I'll see you later, babe. Yeah. Oh, yeah. All right. Love you too, baby. Okay. Anyway, so so here's the reason why we can't lean into the joke. I think you weren't in frame. Forrest, I think you weren't in frame. I don't think it was clear it was you. I think the joke got ruined. No, just you can just come over and wave now. We were gonna like oh my god, oh hello. That's a long. He smells super good. The joke was ruined because the way you came in, you were just at the top of the screen, and I thought, yeah, so goddamn tall. We were just gonna pretend nothing happened and not address it, and then it got ruined. Anyway, drive safe. Love you both. Bye. Okay, now I'm just gonna bring in the. I ruined it. Hey, Alyssa's here. Hi, Alyssa.
Hi, Jimmy. How are you today?
It was a whole thing that was going to be so great and so funny. And then it was ruined. But welcome, everyone. This is HOSTility. That's the name of the show, where I introduce you to people who I like tremendously, who I think are positive voice in the world, are good people that are spreading good information out there. They are embodying the things which I care about, which are skepticism and humanism. And they are the type of people who need to move slightly to their left. Not metaphorically, but physically, or tilt the cam. There we go. We're great. Literally left, not metaphorically. You're plenty left. Well, I don't know. I don't know if you're politically how open you are about your politics, but physically was what I meant there. By the way, I feel like we could have so easily matched today, and I feel stupid for not trying.
Well, we didn't really discuss it, but I'm glad that we both went with cozy vibes, because I think the last time we did this, we were both a little bit more dressed, like dressed.
This is dressed for me. I'm just ugly. Anyway.
No, sometimes you do like a little blazer, right. You know?
Yeah, I've got them around.
A blazer from now and again. Yeah.
There's some blazers around. We could blaze it today. Everybody, Alyssa is a sex coach. And just an amazing person. And one of the things that like we want to make sure we're always working on this channel is fighting back against what we could call purity culture, what we could call poor education, a culture which is afraid to address certain issues, a culture which feels like, it's funny because not everything that we're deconstructing from necessarily comes directly from religion, which is a focus on this channel. A lot of it comes from, like, you could say maybe indirectly, but a lot of it's just we've been conditioned to be sort of, would you say, just embarrassed? It's like the everybody poops thing. Everybody poops, yeah. But nobody is willing to talk about pooping. And then as far as sex goes, everyone has some relationship with sex. Like you could even describe the lack of a relationship with sex as a type of sort of the way atheists exist as a religious category. Asexuals are the atheists of the sex world. But everyone also exists in these societies which are largely sexual, and we're not talking about things that are important. But Alyssa is, because she's amazing. So tell people a little bit about you. before we get into calls. But also, people call in. We're going to be talking purity culture and stuff.
Sure. So actually, just bouncing off of the point that you were making before, I think when we are constantly using anything related to our genital areas, anything related to dating, relationships, and sex, and talking about them always like they're private, then you are taking away people's power to understand the parts of it that are private, meaning you should be protective and you should be careful in the choices that you make, versus like it being something that is not private to you. Like you should be able to explore your own body, explore your own interests, and the lack of knowledge and lack of language around that is what makes this like whole shape, it not makes, but it contributes greatly to like the complex sort of shame bubble that we've created as a result. And that was really like when I started in this whole business in this industry, what really drew me to it the most was like I never viewed myself as a person that had felt like inhibited or shameful of anything that I was doing or saying or whatever, like in my sex or relationship life. And it as I was an assistant to a sex coach who was a somatic practitioner, so she was doing a lot of like almost like massages, like breathing exercises, that sort of thing. And it was so interesting because I felt sort of like, wow, like I can't believe that people are so open with this person and being able to like share all of this. I mean, there's like always like some sort of glove or fabric or whatever between any sort of delicate areas, but people are so willing to be open and learn and expand their sexuality. And they were of all different ages. I think her youngest client was like in her 20s and the oldest was like 79. And they were just learning so much about their sexuality now. And that was really cool. Like we don't really get taught this stuff unless you're really like heavily seeking it out. And so it was such an empowering environment to be around. And I knew that that's something that I wanted to explore further. And it's been great. It's been a journey.
Yeah. I have been obsessed with sex in all the ways since I was very young. But it is funny when you are a very sexual person, the way then when you have a sort of academic interest. I don't talk about it a ton, but my original education path was going to be to become a gynecologist. That was the thing I was most interested in. And then basically things interrupted that, and I continued a path as a photographer because that was doing well for me at the time. And was like, oh, I'd rather be an artist than have to fucking treat people who lie to you, even though you're your doctor and you shouldn't lie to your doctor. But anyway, I always thought it was very funny when people would be like, oh yeah, of course you'd become a gynecologist. And I'm like, bro, you think I'm going to become a gynecologist because I love vaginas so much I just want to see them all day long? That will ruin them. That will ruin vaginas for me. I want to be a part of the new life process, procreate.
Right.
I probably would have gone the OB route as well. I imagine because of where my morality has also landed, like what my moral bases are, I probably would have been doing the old abortions as well. There would have been people who would have hated me for performing all that stuff. But I didn't do that. And it is funny though that like it almost feels like in our society, if you have people are almost more. I'm trying to think of how to word it. It's almost easier for them to come to terms with you're just a horny person than come to terms with like you are a person who wants to be having sexual conversations, who wants to be discussing on a non-sexual way to yourself, not to get a rush, not to get an erection, not to like you want to talk about the ins and out, but not because you're trying to put it in and put it out. Like that's I thought that was funny and you didn't laugh at all. I'm done, everybody.
No, it's true.
Plays on words.
To preface, I am a little sleepy, so my brain's a little slow. We're going slightly slower than we normally would, but I got it. We got it.
You're amazing, and you're always amazing. And by the way, speaking of how amazing you are, another part of today is to introduce all of you to Alyssa, because Alyssa, you will see in the future. We think we're working it out. We're figuring it out. We've got some things to resolve. She has a hard contract about how much time she has to speak to me It's the weirdest thing. She's like, socially, I'll only pretend to be your friend for this number of hours a week.
Oh, please.
Alyssa, you're one of my favorite people in the whole damn world. But
likewise.
There is a new show that we'll be launching called Sexpectations that Alyssa will be a major featured part of. That will be launched on a new channel that's also existing. It's a repurposed new sort of channel. It's hard to say what exactly it is, right? It's like kind of tough to actually explain to you this new channel. But there's another channel. It's now called The Line X. There's a link in the description. Go subscribe to it now. Live shows of episodes of Cus I Wanna, Sexpectations, possibly a cult-specific call-in show, and the likes will be going on The Line X. The Line X is a necessary new channel for a couple of reasons, and I'm just going to give the brief explanation. First of all, we want to do multiple shows a day at different times, but let's say that we put Sexpectations on Thursdays, which is what we're currently eyeballing. Well, we also have Transatlantic Call-In Show on Thursday. So if that's at 2 and then say Sexpectations is at 6, YouTube has a limited number of notifications they'll send out in a day. And so if we put it on a new channel, we can get independent notifications. They don't fuck with each other. But if we put them on the same. The other reason is the Line X is going to be more adult themed content. It won't surprise me if the channel gets marked by YouTube as even though there will be educational stuff that's actually probably pretty important for anybody of, say, high school age or higher. It is going to probably get marked as this is an adults content channel. It wouldn't surprise me. It's an unfortunate thing. But also, talking about sex, talking about cults, there are certain topics that are much higher risk to get flagged, to get mass flagged, where people come in and mass report. These people are telling people they should enjoy sex. Report. That sort of thing happens more on those topics. And then, like, if you're talking shit about Mormonism, mass flags by Mormons, false flagging it. And the thing is we'll win the appeals. I have no doubt of that. But in the meantime, when you get that strike, while they're resolving the appeal, you can't stream. They actually turn off streaming for 7 days. So if we got struck on a Monday here, that would knock out. So say Skeptalk did something and we got struck on Skeptalk, that would knock out Tuesday's HOSTility, Wednesday's Hang Up, and Thursday's Transatlantic Call-In Show. So that's a big part of why we are going to be doing this new secondary channel, the Line X. It's going to be, someone said, watch that channel be what blows up. I think all the channels are going to blow up. I think they're all going to be huge. And I think to tell you the truth, I think the Line X is going to quickly become my favorite network, even though I'm appearing on the line so much. I'm very excited to get into these more adult topics and these more explicit topics, because I think you and I have a similar passion for it. You are the one now with all the credentials, and I'm just full of shit. But you've gone off and put in the work and just become an awesome wealth of knowledge. And I'm always so impressed by you. But it's when you are passionate about it, the idea of not talking about it is frustrating, and holding back on this channel ever is frustrating.
Yeah.
And you want to talk about it all the time. Go ahead.
Totally. And even on like my personal social accounts, like on TikTok and Instagram, it's really hard to like say what you actually want to say, because you have to use all these sort of like euphemisms so that you don't get taken down by all the like, even if it's not going to be removed from the app, the algorithms will pick up enough of it and just like absolutely bury it. And so it goes through sort of ebbs and flows of like, sometimes a video will do really, really well and it's sort of sex related, and other times something sort of sex related is going to tank and it's just some word that I said. And I remember once, like, I think it was on TikTok, maybe one of the apps, where I had used like a silly term for, I think I said like coochie instead of vagina or whatever, or vulva or whatever. And someone had said in the comments, well, if you're an educator, like, why aren't you using the real words? Like, that drives me crazy. And I was like, I would love to. Naming your body parts is a big part of claiming them. And if you can't really say the words, you're not fully claiming those parts as yours. And so it's a big part of like unraveling all of the stuff that we've sort of built up around sexuality. So I would love to be able to talk about everything super explicitly. It's just not going to happen on some of these things.
And even on the quote unquote adult channel, the more adult channel, there'll even still be limitations there. It's like, there's some stuff that you just still can't say and certainly can't do. We'll never be able to have like, despite the fact that you and I know so many adult content creators that would totally be like, yeah, I'll come on and be your like body model for some explanation of sexual body parts. Like, here's the mammaries. Like that's not going to be happening on the Line X. There'll still be limitations, if you will. All right. So let's talk about tonight and the conversations we're going to be having. First of all, we want to talk to you. Your questions about if there's some sort of coaching you want, you can call and give a fake name. You don't have to use your direct name or whatever if you feel a little embarrassed. If there's something you want a little bit of advice or direction on as far as sex stuff goes, you have a sex coach here. She's amazing. She will give you incredible advice. If you want to fight about purity culture and actually defend purity culture, you can call in about that. If you want to call in and ask me, because I haven't done the video about it and I've been promising it for years, but I'm willing to rant about it. But you want to ask me and Alyssa whether or not we think you should wait till marriage ever to have sex, if that there should ever be an occasion in which you should wait until marriage, that could be an interesting call. That could be an interesting question, but you don't get it unless the question gets asked in the normal way. And the normal ways are either call in, ask your question, we talk on there, or we do a super chat Q&A at the end. And that's one that I'm a little spoiler alert. I don't think anyone should wait to, not only is it not a matter of waiting to have sex until marriage is a religious concept, I actually think it is a mistake for everyone to wait till marriage to have sex. It's a bad idea.
Yeah.
And I'll defend it if somebody wants to call in and engage that. Yes, you can just call her Alyssa. Someone said, can we just call her Alyssa? Yeah. Is there any other name you like to go by?
No, okay. That's it. I've been holding this 3D printed clitoris in my hand and just like kind of like playing with it. And I kind of broke it a little.
Oh no.
I broke my clit.
The devastating moment that Alyssa broke her clit. Do you have any nicknames, especially with, I think a lot of people are going to want to hear you pronounce your last name because they're probably all going, I'm going to fuck that up.
Well, on socials, I just go by Alyssa Loop because that's the first half of my last name. And honestly, after that is where it's a big gray area actually in my family. Some people say Ljubicich. Yeah. Some people say Ljubicich.
Yeah.
I have a part of my family that says Ljubicich, which is just blatantly wrong, wrong. So, you can really just take a dart, your best guess, and I'll probably respond to it. It's Croatian.
One of my proudest moments was earlier this year when I asked you if I could, last year, I guess it was, when I asked, do you mind if I try to guess before you tell me how to pronounce it? And you said, go ahead. And I got it right on the first try. Not a joke. I nailed it.
First try.
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. That never happens.
Which is why when you said the other ways your family said it, I'm like, well, it's a check. Okay. It's a check.
It is.
Okay. Let's, all right, everybody. It's obviously the case. So last thing before we get into calls and Q&A, by the way, we have open lines right now. If you want to call and share a purity culture experience, ask what should be done in that situation, whatever you want to call in about related to this, sex, purity culture, if you want to debate, defend purity culture, whatever, we'll do it. I will say Sexpectations. I don't know. Alyssa, would you say that you do... This is more something we should discuss off air, but I feel like I want to set everyone's expectations to be that won't probably be as much of a debate show often. It'll probably be more of a, but if you're down, if you're like, no, if somebody wants to call in and fucking tell me that, Jesus doesn't want me to touch myself, I'm down. I'm in.
I'm okay with a little bit of debating.
Yeah.
I think, it's interesting. It's interesting that people get very up in arms with anything related to sex. Like, obviously abortion is like such a huge, huge thing. It's just interesting to me that something is so intimate that you don't want to talk about it. You don't want to teach it at schools, and there's never a polite place to talk about it. But then like you want to tell everyone what to do.
Right.
In that very private and intimate moment in their life. It just is so shocking to me. I don't really understand that alone. Like, aside from the nuances of all of it, Like, if you're telling me it's so private we can't talk about it ever, then why
Yeah.
is a stranger telling me what to do?
I just had a marketing idea. It's totally unrelated to what we were just talking about, but can I give you a little bit of direction in your career? That's a
Yes.
joke. No, I don't. But I thought of something funny. You should do a series that specifically comes out on Tuesdays, probably as shorts, where you're just answering a question or whatever, and you should call it Luby Tuesdays.
That's so good.
Welcome everybody. It's
Wait,
Luby
I'm gonna
Tuesdays. Luby, goodbye, Luby Tuesday. I
That's
think that
so
would be
good.
tremendous and incredible. Okay. Anyway, the actual last topic I want to talk about before we get to calls. Again, calls are open 720-619-2288, 720-619-2288. We want to talk to you about sex, purity, culture, and all the like. The topic I was going to say, and then I got distracted, your podcast. Can we talk about your podcast for a moment? It is called...
Yeah. Alyssa Explains It All.
Explains
Want me to
It
tell
All.
you
I was going to
about
say,
it?
I'm so glad I didn't name it because I was going to say Alyssa Explains Everything. And I was going to get the name wrong.
That's crazy because it's a TV show, which now it occurs to me you did not watch when you were a kid. Clarissa Explains It All. Did you ever watch that?
And I love puns. I'm glad to know that you were doing the pun work. But no, I never watched Clarissa Explains It All. It sounds like something with a strong female lead, so I probably wasn't allowed to.
It was, it's Melissa Joan Hart, I think, is it in it? That's funny. And I didn't even think that would be like a part of why you wouldn't be able to watch it. But she definitely she's in like high school and kisses boys and, goes through like her normal high school things. It's really cute. And so when we were trying to find a name for the show, I think we were just like, honestly, actually, one of my followers recommended it to me. Like, I had asked my followers to just give me name ideas, and that was one that somebody chose. And I was like, I loved that show. I think that's so cute. And the irony of it is that I don't really explain everything myself. I oftentimes will have like an expert in whatever the specific field is to come on and talk about things. Like, we recently had this woman, her name is Dr. Howell, and her business and her Instagram name is Vagina Rehab Doctor. Stunning.
That's pretty awesome.
We must have you on.
I'm trying to prompt chat. Y'all call in. Let's get these calls going. So with your podcast, generally you're talking to experts. You're also talking to porn stars, random assholes from YouTube. I know I've shown up once or twice. Who was your favorite?
Your episode?
Yeah.
Your episode is like one of our most listened to, most downloaded, and most listened to. Yeah, this year. Yeah, so far.
Wow.
Is that funny?
Yeah.
I know.
Who would who would care?
I think that people are more interested in your background and how that relates to like how you developed your sexual identity than you think that they are.
And we talked about that, right? I didn't just make a bunch of butt jokes the whole time.
No.
I don't remember.
We did talk about that.
Okay.
We did talk about that. And I get like a lot of like people text me about your episode a lot. I think you were very open in that show too. So if anyone is interested in Jimmy's personal sex life, there isn't a ton, but there's a little something.
Yeah, there's
a little something for you.
I'm definitely. I recall being explicit, but also worrying that I was ruining the whole show. And there were times where like I think I asked for clarification of how far I can go. I was like, am I going to?
You could say whatever. You could say whatever. But yeah, so we have all different types of people who come on. So we've had people that I know, like just personally. Like tomorrow I have a friend coming on who is a leadership coach. So she teaches specifically women how to succeed in like leadership roles, whether that's professionally or kind of like in your personal life too. And she's one of the best communicators I've ever experienced in my life. And so I'm excited to bring people like that to the show. Obviously, Jimmy's come on the show. We've had people like Vagina Rehab Doctor. We've had porn stars like Alexis Fox. We talked extensively earlier today about Alexis Fox.
Yeah.
And her boobs. And
her boobs did come up.
Yeah. It's been great. It's been a really fun experience to bring it on like a whole different smattering of people.
Yeah. Smattering is an interesting word to use when talking about sex. There's something visual. So let me tell you, people, every person who has called so far has dropped before the screener. I think people are getting embarrassed. Except
are they getting
for
nervous?
we also have blocked people trying to call too. I don't know who it is. I don't know which blocked person's trying to call. But we've had people trying to call in, and every single one, I think even before, I don't even think the screeners had a chance to get to them. They call, and after like 8 to 10 seconds, they've hung up. I don't know is there embarrassment?
I wonder if they're just maybe they're just getting nervous. People feel very nervous to talk about this stuff.
Yeah.
There have been times where we've had to do exercises with women or vulva vagina owners, getting them comfortable with saying the words vulva and vagina. Do you know how many times we've had to like sit with someone and be like, vulva, you need to say it. And then the way that we get people comfortable saying those words is you have them say it in like a silly voice. You have them say it super fast, or you have them say it super slow. You have them say it really high and really low, and like all these like silly ways, so that you're like, you get sort of just comfortable with the way that it feels in your mouth. You can say it really loud and really quiet, and then after a while, just saying the word is much more comfortable.
I just always think of the King of the Hill episode where Peggy's getting used to saying saying penis by just saying like happiness, happiness, happiness.
Yes.
Penis. And then she sighs and she's like, I said it. And then suddenly she just screams, vagina.
It's the perfect method. It's perfect.
That's such an interesting thing too, though. This idea that like of not even saying the words as though it's a spell. You're going to you're going to be in trouble. You're gonna die. You're going to do you know what's way more better topic or fascinating to me? Though I'm gonna sound a little bit sexist as though men are better and they're not. But years ago, they're worse. But years ago, I found it interesting if I had a relationship with a person, and back then I was exclusively dating cis women. So we're talking about like the first half of my 20s, maybe a little bit into the second half. But I always thought it was fascinating with anybody who I was sexually open with. So either someone I was having a relationship with or like a friend that we were totally open to, like quiz women in those scenarios on like if they know what they have down there, like do the what is the vulva, what is the vagina, what are the labia, and I was shocked at how little everyone knows about their own body, and like that they don't, like, you just think about even in silly ways, like we've got names for our fingers, like pinky, ring finger, middle finger, index, thumb, and you maybe apply that.
I would go as far to say that if someone asked a middle schooler what a phalange is, they would know.
Yeah, for sure.
They would know.
And we know words that sound like other words. And again, by the way, I want to be clear. The time it was because I was only dating women. Men also don't know men don't know what their pee hole is called often. Like they don't. And so, and when you show them the diagrams of what's going to happen if they get a vasectomy, it's all like, oh my God. Well, when you poke a hole, will all the fluid come flowing out? Buddy, there's no fluid in there. What are you talking about? If there's fluid in there, you got problems. Your scrotum is not full of liquid. And there's, by the way, there are calls lining up now. We will jump on them. We're waiting for the screener to hop on to finish getting our notes lined up for him. But it is so, like, people know names of things that sound like other things. You remember everybody talking about their weenus? My weenus.
Oh my God, yes. Yeah. Yes, I remember that. And you want to know something crazy? Specifically for the female, female using just like whatever the biological blah terms, that's not very inclusive, but for that genital anatomy and reproductive anatomy and arousal anatomy, that was not mapped all in one diagram until the early 2000s.
That's insane.
And a urologist did it.
That's insane.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Like there was no diagram that could show you the way that like your cervix and all of the like internal just all the internal parts, and then having the like vulva and reproductive pieces all be part of it.
Cervix was the one that I was surprised no one knew what it was. Like You could ask men or women. It was no one. Like, and then have you seen the TikTok of the guy? There's somebody recording, and there's a girl laughing, and she laughs and she goes, "Oh my God, I just peed," and she's like laugh because she's laughing so hard, and he's like, "How did you pee? You have a tampon in." And everyone, like the whole room just stops and is like, "What did you just ask?" Now listen, okay, here's the thing. I just realized I did something that I shouldn't. I don't want to project any shame out for that. Because if you don't know, you don't know. And that is society's failing. That is education's
100%.
failing. If you call and need it explained to you how a woman pees when they have a tampon in, we'll explain it to you, understanding you're doing the work and trying to find out now. Okay? So don't, if you need to call in with that question specifically, I don't know whether we should just answer it now just in case or presume. But,
do you want me to answer it?
Yeah. Go on.
This is the vulva pillow, and the vulva is just the exterior part. The vagina is literally just the interior tube that leads inside. That's what the vagina is. Everything else is the vulva. So where you enter when you're going to have sex and where you put a tampon, that's where like menstruation would come out, is the vagina, which is right here.
That's one of the places you enter, for the record. Sex is much more exciting. Well, the place you enter, Alyssa, my God.
In the pillow.
I'm just kidding. I'm teasing. Okay. I'm teasing. And then, I'm not running a vanilla show. I'm just kidding.
Then there's a little place right up here. It's kind of hard to see. And that's where your urethra is. And that is where you'll actually pee from. So they're just different holes.
Yeah. Well done, everybody. We'll probably get canceled. The show's getting taken down for the vagina pillow, I'm sure.
They let me have it on Netflix, so I feel like that's pretty good.
You can have nudity on Netflix.
You can?
Yeah. There's nudity on Netflix. There are movies that have titties and stuff. Like, you can't have full penetration, but there's sex scenes all over Netflix.
Maybe I haven't been taking advantage of my Netflix subscription as much as I should have.
That could be. I don't think a pillow actually will. And clearly that was educational content. I think we're good. I was just teasing. Trying to destroy the show before the new one starts. Alyssa over here. No, that was great. That was a great explanation. There's another hole. And you know what's funny is Forrest and I were talking about this earlier because we were talking about different educational things we had done over the years and like how the main thing is that men think like, well, I don't have that other hole. So you barely don't have that hole. There's so little between you. And it's basically the seam on your testicles and then some gear in the way. There's even like a little like faux uterus in men. There's so much shit. You break it all down. The way I worded it was, if men knew how close they were to having a pussy, maybe they'd stop being assholes. Cause you're real close. Your testicles, that scrotum that you think is so funny, those are labia, my guy.
Yes. They're homogenous, body parts. So all of the body parts in in the penis, scrotum, that whole, it's all of the same parts arranged differently. That's all it is.
Yep. Okay. You ready for calls? We now have full lines. We went from everyone was too scared to everybody's waiting now. I'm ready if you're ready.
Wonderful. I'm ready.
Fantastic. We're talking to Sundal. No location here, but we've got Sundal on the line. Sundal, if we're on speaker, if you'll take it down to just straight talking to us. And Sundal, what was your question, concern, comment? Bring it to us. You're on the line.
Well, I wanted to make I'm sorry. I'm in Chico, California, Northern California. And I'm 79-year-old female, so I'm a child of the 60s.
Hey, Sundal, real quick, Sundal, if we can move the microphone a little bit further away from your mouth, it's picking up real loud. You're clipping very, very hard.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that better?
I think so. I also am hearing myself echo. We're not on speakerphone, are we?
Absolutely not.
Oh, weird. Okay.
Let me double check, though.
Okay.
No, you're not.
Well,
let me move away from my computer a little farther. That might make a difference. I'm on a regular landline. That's what I'm on.
Gotcha.
How's that? Is that better?
It's still clipping real bad. So what we may do is just have you pose your question or commentary, and then we'll answer it off air. The microphone's real sensitive. I think the echo I'm hearing is it literally is picking up the sound going into your ear.
Oh, could be. My head's probably hollow.
No, it's not that. It's not that. But yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to make a comment on this whole purity culture.
Sure.
Which I think is absolutely stupid.
Us too, for sure.
I've got to not look at the screen because I see your guys' mouth moving, but I can't hear anything you're saying. So it's
yeah. There's a delay. There's a delay for sure.
Yeah. No, I just find it very interesting that people push this purity culture onto women, but not men.
Yeah. Huge double standard.
I grew up in a household of 5 brothers and 1 sister.
Sure.
Never did my parents tell my brothers not to do anything. But yet my mother chastised me and my sister for every little thing we did. Well, I told my mother to go get F'd.
Yeah. That's good.
She was raised religion, and she was trying to push it off on us, and I would not have it. And my thought was in the 60s that women should be able to walk down the street stark naked and be perfectly safe and not have any problems.
Yeah.
And here we are.
Yeah.
50
all these
years later.
Sure.
And it's the same thing over and over and over.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. Sando, here's what we're doing. I think we both have some commentary to say, but yeah, just between the echo and the clipping, it's an
sorry about that.
No, it's all good.
Phone probably.
It's all good. It's all good. Just it's a real sensitive line. So we'll answer off air or off the call itself. But yeah, thank you very much for calling, and we'll sort of give our thoughts on it here in a moment. But so now turn the volume back up on your TV or computer to be able to hear that.
Oh yeah.
Cool. All right. Thank you, Sando.
And I'm great fans of your show and your guys' work.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Yeah, I'm so obsessive about audio, and I can't think about almost anything else. When stuff like that's going on.
I love Sundal.
Yeah, Sundal's great.
I love Sundal.
Yeah.
She was great. I agree so much. It's so like you could feel the frustration because she has lived through all of these moments and movements specifically for women. And I was even talking about, there's this really great sex therapist. Her name's Esther Perel. She's quite famous. I'm sure if anybody's interested in this stuff, they've heard of her. She does a lot of work talking about monogamy, the lack of monogamy, and like basically how our culture treats cheating and infidelity. Yeah. And she says that monogamy is our final frontier. And there's really never been a time where we've been fully monogamous, and that's just a cultural thing. Sure. We've given completely different set of rules in terms of like that sort of arena to the men in our lives, and then the women have to adhere to completely different ones. We see that even in the way that, like, when we're talking about things like sexual assault, it's always we're being questioned why, like, how the woman was dressed, what she was doing, if she led the guy on, and women have to carry pepper spray and learn how to hold your key between your fingers and be aware of your surroundings. God forbid we use headphones while we're walking in the dark. But in reality, what should be taught is like, hey, maybe we don't like attack women. Maybe we like let them make their own choices safely. And that's just more of like a larger societal issue that stems back to like the beginning of the patriarchy and westernized culture.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because so this is going to be one of those times where it's like, Jimmy, this isn't your soapbox. But there's something to be said about. I'm trying to think of how to word it because again, sometimes you word things and you're like, this is the correct thing, but I don't want to sound sexist at all. I do think it's a mistake to not consider the ramifications of purity culture on men. However,
100%,
clearly women have it. Not just that it's different, it's clearly worse for women. So the consequences for quote unquote being impure as a woman are much, much higher than the consequences for men. I grew up specifically in a religion that was anti-masturbation on top of everything else. So, it is constantly not just that you are shamed for it, but there are older men put in charge of asking you if you've been masturbating. And that sends you into, right, it's fucking nuts. That sends you into these terrible shame spirals. And honestly, like I've talked a lot about how suicidal and hateful of myself I was growing up. And honestly, it wasn't the suppressing my queerness that was causing it, though that often is the case in Mormonism, because I so much like women on top of what I now recognize is just part of what I'm into. But it wasn't difficult really to suppress the queer side, though it did have other ramifications that I ignored. But the things that were causing the shame spirals were the fact that I felt like I couldn't break my masturbation addiction, and the fact that I was sexually expressing myself with a girlfriend at the time. Like it was all of these things that were still purity culture of a kind. But of course, so one of the things is that my family was so fundamentalist, so hyper extreme about it. Like that also made it a lot worse. But from the perspective of the church, there was still, if I were to go and confess to having premarital sex, it would almost be like, all right, well, we saw that coming. So here's your method to getting back in good with God or whatever else. And, everybody's imperfect and doobie-doo. But also if a woman goes, the woman who would have been going to the same bishop because she's who I had sex with, is going to have a totally different experience. So literally, like, I could have sex with a woman and we go to the bishop to confess. And I'm going to have the look, you're imperfect. There are consequences. You got to do this. You need to feel bad. Let's definitely make sure the shame is still there. And you need to do this and this to repent. Basically, people are going to know you did something because you're not going to be allowed to take the sacrament. And that's a public event. And like, here are the things, and it's going to suck and you're going to feel bad for yourself. The woman's going to sit down and the gaslighting will begin. And it'll be about what she did and her responsibility to keeping men pure. And what was she wearing? And did she orgasm? And did she like it? Because there's almost an expectation of like, if you have sex and you liked it, now it's a real problem. There's almost a preference until you're married that sex should be something you don't enjoy, that you're doing almost as a task to keep. Even for some people, and after you're married, like, this is for your husband, not for you. It's either for your husband or it's for making babies. And so that the purity culture, the consequences of purity culture are definitely worse on women. But I definitely think it would be a mistake to universally say, like, it's only going at women, and something like the caller said at the beginning, which I'm sure the caller probably had a more nuanced take, and it's only the audio quality that prevents us from sharing that. But also beyond that, the ramifications on men are the conditioning of the objectivity, the over objectification of women by men is their purity culture programming. And it doesn't just hurt the women they're objectifying, it hurts them too. It affects their ability to feel companionship. It affects their ability to exist in a society as not a giant sack of shit. Again, the consequences are stronger, but when we have the conversation about, there's almost something wild about, you could actually fix purity culture problems for everybody if you fixed the purity culture problems for men, because women are hating themselves because of the standards men have imposed on them for expectation. It's almost like the purity culture is coming from men. So if you fix the men, it fixes the whole goddamn thing.
Right. I mean, I think the biggest difference in the way that women and men are treated when it comes to purity culture, especially historically, women would be like, they were risking their lives in pursuit of just having like normal sex lives. Like a large part of like witch hunting. There's this book, I think it's like something, I don't know, whatever. It's this book that was like the guide for how to know if a woman around you was a witch during like the height of all the witch trials. And one of the ways was if a woman was having sex and enjoying it, which and they would do terrible things to these women. And like that's part of our history when we talk about sexuality as a whole. And but still in that circumstance, if you had fixed the way that the men had treated the situation, then we wouldn't have had it at all. Like that would not exist. So it's almost like the fixing and educating almost in this specific scenario has to go towards the majority of like the men, and then the healing sort of has to happen on the female front.
Yeah, I agree. It's funny the stuff just talking about this whole enjoyment stuff. I had a partner years ago. I'm not gonna actually say what ethnicity and stuff, even though it's gonna be related to that. But we were intimate, and and I was like, oh my God, are you in pain, or should we stop? And basically what I was informed was that it's actually cultural. Where she's from, like, you perform in a way of like the men there are expecting you to sound like it's hurting you, that it's meant to like that's what's popular and what guys there are really into. Where she's from, like the sound of like it's
pain.
Yeah, it's almost so obviously there's lots of kinks and stuff that people can play out and enjoy, and so like there are lots of people who are into CNC, and if everybody's totally into that and everything, of course there's no objections. But when it's a cultural default expectation from people, because it's actually rooted in, I want to do this role play with you because I want you to perform the way that I have to respect you in public, but in private, I want the opportunity to not respect you because frankly, I wouldn't respect you if there wasn't a societal expectation, which was sort of what the situation was there. It was also a part of the world where things that we consider rape aren't even considered rape or illegal in some places. And so it's the way purity culture doesn't just exist as a religious enforced thing that you can automatically flag and go like, oh my God, they're saying because Jesus doesn't want me to jerk off or whatever, like I can't do that. It also exists in the forms of just what we find gross or what we find and sometimes it's what we find exciting in that case. And it's a really dark fucking thing. Hey, by the way, one, none of you have guessed correctly, but two, trying to guess in the chat is kind of a dick move. So let's not do that, what the ethnicity was. And let's go ahead and delete the messages. We won't ban you, but we're going to delete anybody who's out there trying to guess which place. There's a reason why I didn't say it.
Also, CNC, consensual non-consent, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, just wanted to make sure that I knew correctly, and that in case anybody else didn't know.
Do you want to know why I know the term? It's a pretty funny story. It's very short.
Yes, tell me.
I have a CNC, which is a wood type. It's a machine for carving wood.
Okay.
It doesn't stand for. Let me see what it stands for. CNC woodworking. It's like computer navigated carving. It's not actually that. What does it stand for? Does it stand for? What is a CNC? Just answer the question, Google. You're supposed to be better than this. Computer numerical control. It's basically you tell the computer how to carve stuff out of wood for you. It's more for making shapes is what I use, like a basic shape of something I'm going to create. Anyway, I was basically posting about like, here's something I'm doing today, working on my CNC. I'm doing my CNC today. And of course, my audience is a bunch of perverts. No, I love all of you. And I love you for being such a bunch of perverts, but y'all are a bunch of perverts. And there's a lot of people like, I don't think this means what you think it means. And I was like, I don't think it means what you think it means. I think sometimes there are multiple anagrams out there and or acronyms. Anyway.
That's so unfortunate.
I will, there's actually a recurring theme in some of tonight's things, but we've got Sad Bean from Canada on the line. Sad Bean, if we can turn off the show in the background, make sure we're not on speaker. I'm already hearing some stuff, but Sad Bean, you are on the line. What's that?
I don't even know how to take you off speaker because I'm calling through the website.
Oh, and you're on your phone?
Yeah.
Gotcha. And wow. Yeah, and this is also a really sensitive really loud. It's all coming in very loud today. I don't know what's going on. Why we're so sensitive. Anyway, just do your best here then, and we'll take your call and might have to do another thing. But luckily, the echo is improving.
Okay, I'll hold the phone further away. Also, sorry for my cat. He's decided right now he wants to say hi.
Okay. Well, we can't see the cat. It's all good. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I guess I was curious if you know anything about the topic of like clitoral numbness from antidepressants, or if that's something that you've worked with people to work around, because I definitely much prefer orgasms from my clit, but it's just so difficult without my magic wand, and even when I take a break.
I understand. Yeah. As a person who is also on antidepressants, I understand personally.
Yeah.
So the good news is that there are things that you can do to bring the sensation back to those areas. So just because you don't feel a ton of sensitivity now doesn't mean that you can't do like exercises to build sensitivity. So, and the other thing that's kind of interesting is these always come in handy. So what you see as your clitoris is literally just the tip here. And then this is covered by the clitoral hood. So like on this larger diagram, this is where this would be sticking out here. And then this is the clitoral hood. And then the rest of this structure is sitting underneath. So under here would be like, it's called the vestibular bulbs. It's these bulbs here. And the clitoral legs sit right up here. And the reason I'm explaining all of this to you is because the clitoris extends much further than you think it does. So there are ways that you can engage with this part of it that can help to bring more sensitivity all the way through. And funny enough, most orgasms are actually clitoral orgasms because so much of the structure sits around everything else. So it's like almost impossible to have an orgasm that's not using your clitoris. But I understand what you mean. So what you can do, the thing that is sort of like the baby step into this is what we call a vulva hug, which was something that I did on the Circle. If you watched that was one of the things I did on the show. And what you do is you take your hands one over the other and just hold it over your vulva, which is like all the exterior part, and just really kind of like almost like meditating. You want to close your eyes and like take some long, deep breaths. And I know it's going to sound sort of like unrelated to what you're asking me, but you're going to take long, deep breaths and sit with that for a little while and see what you notice. You should start to feel when you start to get erect, which our anatomy also does get erect similarly to the way a penis does, because it's all same parts arranged differently. So when a penis gets erect, it's just blood flow, a lot of blood flow to the area. So when a vulva gets erect, it's a lot of blood flow to the area. So you'll start to see like the sides of this puffing up from these bulbs filling up with blood. And when you start to feel all of those things, you're having the physical manifestation of feeling erect. And the more that you do things like a vulva hug and really meditate on it, you'll start to, and if you're asking yourself, like, what am I noticing? What am I feeling? You'll start to feel those little like tinglies. And once you start to feel those little tinglies, then you can start to do some other kinds of exercises. You could do like sort of like petting. And it's funny because I think because we're not educated on how to like really enjoy sex with a vulva, we are immediately like insertion or clit. We forget that all of this is erogenous tissue and it's like all nerve endings, all of it. So there's so much that you have at your disposal that can help you bring those connections alive again. And it's all like a lot of it's neurological too. So what you're trying to basically reconnect is the neurological connection between what your brain is receiving and what your tissues are feeling. Because when you have something like an antidepressant, I don't know like the full, I'm not a psychologist or psychiatrist, so I don't know like the full extent to how all of those medicines work in your brain. But when you're taking something like that, I don't think that like it's actually numbing the nerve endings. I think it's numbing something in the way that you're receiving it in your brain. So you basically want to help reconnect everything again, so that when you feel the vulva hug, when you feel the petting, your brain is like, oh, okay, I think this is actually kind of nice. And I think if you take it super slow and just like, sometimes I do a vulva hug when I'm like sitting in bed. I'll just be like trying to go to sleep and I'm just sitting there like this. I'm like, it feels so nice. Like if you've ever been sitting at like your desk or something and you're just like holding your boob, that's like a comfort thing sometimes too. Kind of feels like that. And I think that will help just kind of get the juices flowing and bring the feeling back to that area, so that your brain starts receiving it as being something that's safe and also fun, and also like you'll start to feel smaller like touches and amplify them. That was a very long answer.
And unfortunately, Sad Bean at some point during the call disconnected. So I just let you keep going to make sure that
that's
Sad
okay.
Bean would get the full answer later.
Yeah, hopefully she heard it anyway.
I did try holding my own boobs. I don't really get comfort from that.
Isn't it nice? Really?
I get nothing.
Sometimes that's another. I'll sit in my bed and I'll be like reading a book in one hand and just like holding my boob in the other.
I mean, as a nut haver, I definitely like. I've realized that I'm like reading or something and just like, oh man, I've just been cupping them this whole time, keeping them up.
It's like a security thing. It's like warm down there. It's like soft.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah. It's supposed to be. But yeah, anyway, thank you, Sad Bean, for calling in. There was a moment during that where, first of all, some of the things people are saying in the chat are very funny, but some of them are childish.
I don't have the chat. But I don't have the chat open. I should have it open.
But then also there's just this moment where I had this moment of like, this is a surreal experience where I'm like, this is the best form of any call-in show I'm ever gonna do. Like, time to quit and just do all the rest. Just talk about all the nerve endings in the clit. All right, let's talk to Alex in California. Alex.
Hello.
How are you? You're on the line.
I'm good, thanks.
Good.
Before I start, Alyssa, you're great, and Jimmy, go sublate yourself.
Yes, I'll sublate. I'll sublate it. I'm ready to sublate all night long.
Thank you, Alex. That's very nice.
It's an insight. It's a thing that happened on the show last week. Anyway, Alex, what did you want to talk about?
So I wanted to talk about like dress code sexism and how like I'm a couple years out of high school now, and I remember all like girls would have to like they'd be forced to cover up just for wearing like not really revealing stuff. There's just like they're showing their shoulders, but you know they're not allowed to show that even. Or like if they're like moving their straps around, and it would you know people would have a problem with that. And I think that's all part of this purity culture stuff, and it's really gross, and it like sexualizes them. And I just wanted to like start a conversation on that, I guess.
I think that is a great conversation to start. It is. I always thought that was weird. Why am I in like the 6th grade and I can't show my shoulders? Like, who's trying to fuck my shoulders? Like, what do you mean? It's just such a weird, like, how did we get, and it's so gross to sexualize children. I agree. I think that's really weird. I remember I used to have the rule where your straps had to be 2 fingers and your shorts had to reach the bottom of your middle finger, like if you put your hand down. And I'm like, I understand like people should be dressed appropriately for school, but when it's 90 degrees, 100 degrees outside, and I just want to wear a tank top so I'm not going to be sweating my ass off, it's very frustrating to feel like you have to consider if a random man, whether it's an adult or another like child, which I don't really think it's the other kids. That's what's always weird about it to me. I don't think it's the other kids that feel distracted by a girl in a tank top. I low-key think it's like the teachers.
I think it's both, but I'll wait for a moment, and I'll explain why. I think it'll make sense to you in a moment. But if you're done,
no, go ahead. I don't have any like no.
Okay.
Go ahead.
So I think it's both, and I think it's because it's you're very, when you're young, you're very malleable, and by the time you're in 5th or 6th grade, if you're exposed to, like that was your example, if you're exposed to purity culture, you do internalize it. And so like one of the jokes I've made is like, on the one hand, I want purity culture to go away. On the other hand, if it didn't exist, I'd be way less into boobs now because they wouldn't matter to me. I wouldn't have grown up with the stigma around boobs and how like cleavage is wrong and all that stuff. And they drive me wild. And so I can honestly say, like, as soon as puberty hit, things like bra straps were very distracting because I hadn't had a healthy relationship with understanding, like, yo, this is what they do. This is what they're for. We'd already begun sex ed. I remember my first sex ed class was in 4th grade. So sex ed was already happening. And yet there was still all of this, like, these stigmas and things that you are scheduled that are around. And it's one of those things where it's another one of the things that makes the conversations more complicated, because there isn't, the solution to fixing all this won't be quick, because there aren't just get over it solutions where it's like, look, if I am in a situation that somebody is presenting themselves in a way that my brain triggers a sexual response to, I should never make that their problem, right? Like that's the right thing to do. But it does still shut down the other parts of my mind. So if somebody's boobs are just way out, I'm going to notice and my brain's going to like stop doing the things it's supposed to be doing as effectively. So I shouldn't make that person's problem at all. But more ideally, we would live in a world where we're not shutting down because we've basically made kinks out of the things that are forbidden. And so it is this thing where it's like, yeah, just like even seeing the imprint of a bra through somebody's shirt or tank top as a kid gets you going. I can remember, oh my God.
That's so funny.
What? That's a bra. A bra is, I've established a bra. And I'm so.
It's also weird because like it's one of those times where I almost wish I could understand the intention of every person who's getting dressed, because there are definitely girls who are in middle school and like want to look like hot, and like especially now the way that these middle schoolers look, I'm like, oh my God, I simply did not look like this. There's no way in hell. Like I think we looked younger for longer, and now that especially girls have access to like YouTube and TikTok and whatever, they can like find all the newest clothes and makeup and hair, and they're like doing all these things like perfectly and beautifully. Yeah, and they look a lot older, and I think that they are sort of accidentally making themselves sexualized just by the way that we culturally value women. So we value women who look attractive, and so if that's what they're being exposed to, and that's what they think is going to bring them value, that's sort of what they're imitating.
Yeah.
I think like if you could hypothetically, like no one should have to wear like long pants and long sleeve shirts or whatever, and whether that doesn't make sense because their dress code can't allow for anything differently. But there is also like a bit of a line in terms of like, are you dressing sexually on purpose, or
sure,
it is still school.
Right.
I don't know. It's complicated. I don't know what the answer would be, because I understand to a degree both of them, because for the most part, boys are not showing up in like booty shorts and tank tops. So like you don't really need to. There's not as much of a dress code that you need for them, just because like they're dressing.
But that's
like
a good point.
Basketball shorts and t-shirts.
But that's a good point. The thing is it doesn't mean that they're not. We have a better cultural like acceptance of men who are technically presenting sexually. Like, look, a dude who's got like good arms fucking triggers the same response I have to cleavage. Like arms and cleavage, they're not far from each other in my mind. Like they're different, but they're not. But we have the ability to like shut down and not be distracted, even if a person is the concept of like a shirtless dude who's got like a good body and maybe he's sweaty and look like he's being athletic. That's still a sexual presentation and elicits a sexual response to a lot of people. But we have a cultural acceptance of it and an understanding that this both exists in sexual and non-sexual ways. And so it is sort of like a conditioning that has made it where if a guy does that level of sexual presentation, we can accept it and move on, even if somebody's going to be distracted and they're going to be like, but when women do that level of sexual presentation, simply the world has to stop and people have to assess whether or not she's a slut or whatever else. It's those unhealthy attitudes that clearly there is a way to healthily have these things. And so of course we have to have the lines of adults should not sexualize what we would call teenagers or young adults. The word children, it gets very, of course we shouldn't sexualize children. But then when we talk about sexuality, the other problem we can't do is pretend children, or rather, I'd rather use the term teenagers and young adults, people who are puberty or further, that they aren't sexual amongst themselves and with each other. And when we just say like, we don't give comprehensive sexual education to kids, this is why we have such bad teenage pregnancy and shit in the US. It's literally like, you have to expect sexuality and teach them how to express themselves healthily, what things maybe they should put off until they are older, because y'all haven't even developed the empathy part of your brain yet. You probably shouldn't be fucking each other if you can't do it with anything besides artificial empathy. But there are all these, like, it is a complicated thing, but it's not as though we can't solve it. And again, like, we've clearly solved there are an entire gender representation. We'll say there's tons of men who can present sexually and not be over sexualized. So it's not that humans can't do it. It's that some group of them won't do it, that they won't do it when women sexually present. And so, yeah, it's fucking insane. It's an insane double standard, and I hate it all. But I like boobs, and I'm glad I like boobs. I lament the alternate reality where I'm not into them. Sorry, Alex. Anyway, I think that was the conversation you were trying to start. Was there any other points or thoughts on it you had?
Yeah, I could add a bit to it. So yeah, basically my sex ed was just, this is what a penis is, this is what a vagina is.
Yeah.
And if you have sex, you might get STDs, so don't do it.
Yeah.
That was
probably some explanations of sperm meets egg, and maybe a little bit of like very primary school embryology, but I feel like that was pretty much mine too.
It sucks that in order for a guy to break dress code, they basically have to be like half naked for anyone to care.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But as soon as women show like a collarbone, oh no, we have to cover up it's outrageous.
Yeah. But and this is the thing. Collarbones are hot, but you don't need to make that other people's problems. Actually, for me, it's like shoulders and shoulder blades. Those were also.
Oh my God!
When you just see like an elegant back.
To shoulders.
I'm like the.
I get that.
No, not the top part. The part that's on the back where you see the blade, like the elegance between.
Shoulder blades.
Yeah. We weren't allowed to see that growing up. That wasn't. It was wrong that people in bikinis had that, and so there's something about that, and it's like, I don't know, man, the fucking balance of everything else. Whatever's hot to you can be hot to you, but stop making it other fucking people's problems. And this is this is just my values generally. Whatever makes you tick or bad or wrong or good or whatever, don't make it other people's problems. Fucking Christ. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah. One last thing. So, these conservatives are always talking about groomers, but if you're going to worry about groomers, then how about we look at this stuff and stop saying that these teenage girls are distracting teachers? It's insane.
Yeah, I understand the mentality of like when you you're starting a conversation that might not even have been happening when you start like monitoring how women are dressed or girls are dressing. You're basically saying that my shoulders are a sexual object when I'm in middle school and I don't think that they are. And so you're kind of you're like changing this conversation about women and their bodies and making something that it never was because the adults in the room have decided that this is like what's appropriate and what's not. It's really strange.
Yeah. I mean, sexuality is so subjective. Back to the example of boys or men running around playing like basketball and some of them take their shirts off because they're hot and sweating. Well, it doesn't instantly turn the basketball game into an orgy. Somehow we can turn our brain off. So even if you are attracted to shoulders and shoulders make it, anybody who would fuck the basketball guy who's taking his shirt off, it doesn't just instantly start going like, oh, hey, get on over here, baby. I mean, I'm sure there's occasionally those people in the stands, but you know, you can have almost naked men wrestling each other and nobody mistakes that for sex, but women just existing with a bit of cleavage, and suddenly it's like, well, why? Clearly you're trying to seduce me. Fucking
right. God forbid they feed their child in public too.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. I love just asking people to keep defending whatever they're saying. That's disgusting. Okay, why is it disgusting? Because a titty's out. Why would it be disgusting for a titty to be out? Because you didn't answer why. Titties being out aren't inherently disgusting. Frankly, some of the greatest pleasures in life are titties being out. So, so you're going to have to continue on your explanation here. Anyway.
Yeah, a lot of times if you just keep asking people questions until you get to the, like, just keep asking why over and over again until you drill down to what the actual point is.
Right. And the actual point is, I internalize this shame, and I cannot stand the idea that somebody else is living their truth in their life with less shame than me. You should hold all of the fucking hangups I have. They should fuck you up too. You're not supposed to escape what it fucks me up. Anyway. So, Alex, anything left before we move on?
Nope. F you very much, Jimmy. Thank you.
That's another inside joke. That's a compliment, for the record.
I love it.
I do want to, before we jump on to the next call, I do just want to say a reminder that nobody on the show today is a medical expert. So while there probably are going to be some still, like you gave advice to Sad B earlier, you should, anything which comes with a medical element to it, for sure hear the advice and the counseling and everything, but do know that the ultimate solution to your problem probably requires you to consult a physician. Medical problems do generally require medical solutions. But I'm not saying don't ask the question. I just want to make sure that clarification is out there so no one mistakes this for being like a free clinic or something that we're setting up.
Right.
Yeah.
I saw some people in the comments also even saying, like, don't tell someone to go off their medicine. No one should go off of their medicine without very specific conversations and then instructions from your doctor. Yeah. It's really dangerous.
And one of the reasons I wanted to preempt that is the next call is sort of to that end. So we're talking to Matt in Michigan. So Matt, again, just a reminder that nobody here is a medical expert. However, you are welcome to pose it. And if within the confines of our experiences, we have useful information to share, we certainly will. However, certainly the addition of, always ask a doctor about medicine being there too. But Matt, you're on the line.
Thanks. I understand that. So I hate when people preamble. I won't. I just did want to say I love both of you. You guys are great.
Thanks.
Thanks, Matt.
I think oh yeah, for sure. So you've seen what I said to the screener about the medication. As I've been thinking about it, waiting, I think I kind of wanted to change the question a little bit to,
Sure.
My wife and I have been together for a long time, and our, some of it is probably medication that's slowed things down in life, whatever. I think, though, my question really is it normal for sex to become like a routine? And by that I mean like we have good sex rather infrequently these days, but it's very like a routine thing, and like is like the same, like we do this and we do this and we do this and we do this.
Yeah.
And there's quite a bit of this and this, but it's almost always the same this and this. Does that make sense?
Totally makes sense. And that's super, super normal. Like that is very normal. And also like super fixable if that's something you want to fix. If you want a little bit more excitement and you want to switch it up, there are plenty of things that you can do, even just like changing positions, putting a pillow underneath your wife's back and getting different angles for things is helpful and fun. even like small, like toys that don't feel, it doesn't feel like you're bringing like a monster into the bedroom. It's not that. There are things like, one of my favorites is you can get a candle that's a scented candle that's also massage oil. And that's kind of fun because it's sort of like foreplay, and it creates some like tension. It's also a really like loving and caring thing to do for one another. And it's like a little bit kinky, a little bit something, different. You can also play around with like, if you have any ties or socks, like long socks, like tying up arms occasionally, doing a blindfold. These are things that are like so simple and easy and accessible, that in the sense that you can do them with like very minimal, you could do them with like mostly the stuff that you have around your house. Don't do the massage oil thing without a massage oil candle, but things like blindfolds, tying someone up, that kind of stuff, those are things that you can explore with things that you have in your house. And if you want to have sort of an open conversation, which I think that you should with your wife, and just say, I love when we do this, this, and this, and not but, and I think it would be really fun if we added this, this, and this, and make it a conversation where you're exploring something together and you're adding a little bit of like extra spice to something that you're already doing. I think it's also important to recognize that it's possible that your wife does not view sex the same way that you do. So it could even be a more open conversation of like, what does this time mean to you? I think it's pretty common for people in marriages for an extended period of time to feel like sex has become sort of a chore. And some of that is just sort of like changing the framework around what you're doing. If you make it into something that's like an adventure, you're trying something new, the point of it is not to orgasm, it's not to come, it's to enjoy the closeness, enjoy the sensations, feel more intimate with each other, and like build that relationship and build some excitement behind closed doors. That can be sort of a good like sort of mental goal setting that you can do. But really, it'll start with the conversation, getting to know your wife on that level to say, this is what our sex means to me. This is what I love about it. What if we add a little something? How would you feel about that? And maybe she might be like a little bit nervous. That's okay. You can even do small things like getting regular massage oil or coconut oil and doing just like a little massage. Sometimes the fun can just come in the foreplay of it. If you light some candles safely and you have some massage oil going, maybe if you have like a bath, draw a bath, that sort of thing, and just like amp up some foreplay, that could also be helpful. If you are sort of like past these things, there is an app called Spicer, and it's very fun. You each download the app, and every day it'll ask you a question, and it'll be like, what are your thoughts on fingers in butt? However it's worded, in a way that's more fun and sexy than that. And if you answer yes and she answers yes, you'll get like a match notification, and you'll be like, oh, we found something that you both want to do. And that's really cool. And then it won't tell you if you both got questions that you didn't match up on. So there's no awkwardness. It takes away like the confrontation in a conversation like that. And that's also a fun option too.
Okay, that's like really, that app sounds like right up our alley, and all that was really, really great. That. Thank you.
It's cool. It's really cool. I think you'll really like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. Definitely gonna try and give that a try. This was super helpful. It helped me externalize some things that have just been inside, and great information. Thank you so much.
Of course. And it's everything you're experiencing is totally, totally normal, and also totally, totally like manageable, and you can absolutely work on it, and you'll be great. Download that app.
Awesome. I will. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks, Matt.
Have a good one.
Yeah. I feel like...
Are you going to download Spicer?
I don't have anybody to download it with. Just make it sad here. You know, I could see that being something interesting in the future, but it's definitely an interesting deal. To me, the hottest thing in the world is eagerness. Like if a person is eager to experience you. And I feel like that's probably what, if I felt like something was sliding, that would be my motivation of I just want to feel wanted again. I just want to feel like you're into fucking me. Cause honestly, otherwise, if I had a partner and it just seemed like a chore or like, you know, it was just mutual masturbation, I'd probably just rather jerk off by myself. Like, I don't, it's about that feeling of like being desired and wanted. And I'd probably, prioritize.
I mean, and I think what would, funny enough, make that possible is by doing things that are non-sexual forms of intimacy. So if you feel like your partner is not really as interested in sex as you are, you can do things that are not sexual but build intimacy so that they get a little bit more in touch with wanting to be intimate. And if they can do that in a non-sexual plane, they're more likely to want to explore the sexual stuff. So doing things like a massage where you're not expecting to have sex after is really nice. Or if you live together, cleaning the kitchen, cleaning up an area that you wouldn't normally, that sort of thing. Oh my God, if I lived with a person and I came home and they washed my sheets and I got into my bed and it was like, it smelled, I would be like, wow, take me now. This is the best. Like that, like things
I feel like
I'd
mess it up. It'd be like, this is the wrong fabric softener. You idiot. I only sleep in lilac. How dare you?
No, but it's the thought that's there and it's wanting, it's like wanting to show that you're caring for this other person in ways that are not sexual and without expecting something sexual in return.
Yeah. Well, I love all that. We got a couple more calls, and then after the calls, we will end out with the super chat Q&A. Keep in mind that is the main way we fund the channel. It also makes it possible to do shows like these, shows that don't necessarily get the highest viewership because it's newer. It's not the consistent thing people go to expect. So send in those super chats if you have questions, general question, really whatever you want to be addressed. Of course, they can be on topic, though we do often go off topic for this show. For the super chat portion, we often go off topic. You want to ask Star Wars versus Star Trek, whatever shit, you can ask whatever you like. But we got a couple more calls. So let's talk to Adrian in New York. Adrian, you are on the line with a good topic, I think.
Hi. Okay, I was not thinking I was going to get on. So I feel like I framed my question in a really vague way, but I'm having lots of different things I'm thinking about, and that was just sort of like the overall, like, overarching way that I was thinking about everything. But I guess basically, like, I don't know, I grew up in a very religious family, and the overall, like, theme growing up was that, like, anything outside of the confines of, like, heterosexual marriage was, like, no matter how benign it was lumped in with, like, being like a sexual pervert, basically. And so it's like, you know, I came out about a year and a half ago, which was really great, but I feel like I haven't moved on anything beyond that, like, at all. Like, I'm and it's translating into, like, insecurities in so many areas of my life. Like, I was, like, really just freaking out when I went out with another gay guy one time and we started talking about sex. And I was like, I really ended up embarrassing myself because, like, that insecurity really showed. It's like, and I'm keeping myself from, you know, doing things I want to do and exploring that because anything I do, like the smallest thing, like I'll put off like masturbating because I like, oh man, I'm gonna feel like I'm a pervert or something for any little thing I do. And I'm just like, how do I like stop thinking so black and white that like every little thing I do automatically lumps me in with like the most extreme thing, I guess. I don't know. I hope that makes sense.
You want to go first or second on this?
Second, because I think you have a very specific, like perfect background for this. Actually.
Yeah, this one's a little more up my alley, but I also know that you're a brilliant and will also have good information to say. The most effective form of anything is it's almost based in cognitive behavioral therapy. But let me start by asking this, Adrian. So you understand, like fundamentally at the core, you understand why you feel the shame, and that's coming from basically a fraudulent place, that it's leftover religious programming, right? Like you get that at its core, I assume, right, Adrian?
Yeah.
So the thing that isn't happening is your brain isn't connecting them in the moment. When you're horny and then you feel shame, your brain isn't connecting that shame to the experience now of identifying that as fraudulent, as it being from a fraudulent background. And so what is a useful thinking activity to do is force the connection. And what ends up happening, and I'm going to explain how to in a moment, but what ends up happening is the first times you do it, it's tedious and it annoys you. It's boring and unpleasant. And your brain will start shortening the process to make it quicker over time, to the point that the next time eventually you feel that twang of guilt, and you sort of instantly go through all the shortcuts and it's over. And you're just like, and the guilt's gone. This is stupid. And so the way to do it, the way the exercise works, it's almost purposefully being pedantic and ridiculous, but you identify with words in your head. You don't have to do it out loud, but you can do it out loud if you like, with words. I'm going to do it out loud. So we'll just say out loud. You identify with words what you're feeling guilty about. And then you keep doing as though there's an annoying child in front of you saying why after every statement. You say, why? So you say, I feel guilty because I am turned on by this picture of a naked man and I want to jerk off. Why? Because I learned that it is wrong to be sexually attracted to men. Why? Because the church that it comes from believes that being gay is a sin. Why? Well, because in the Bible it says this. Why? Well, because at that time, back in the day, homosexuality was culturally frowned upon. Men who weren't gay found men who were gay, fucking gross. And so they made it a part of their culture and their religion. Why? Well, because religion is the way people control societies. And you just keep going and you go, and it doesn't have to be that specific direction, but you want to connect, I feel guilty, to I know the reason why I shouldn't feel guilty. And again, it takes a long time the first time. And then later when you start to do it, you go a little bit shorter because you just want to get to that end piece. And if you keep shortening the connections, eventually it just is instantaneous and the shame goes away. The moment you were supposed to feel shame, you might go, oh, this used to shame me, but you don't feel the shame anymore. And there's a bunch of different directions, like I said, that you can take it. Eventually you want to end with something along the lines of, because I was programmed to think this was guilt, that this should make me feel guilty, even though there's no good reason for it to, or because other people are hung up, because my parents wanted a straight child, because whatever. And that's what really this source of guilt is. And their motivation for making me feel guilty is not that I can actually objectively defend that this is bad. I can't objectively defend that this is bad. I can only subjectively, and you need to make the connections. And I found that it was super useful for me, and it's been very useful for other people. Obviously, everybody's different. Maybe you'll be the person it doesn't work for, but it'd definitely be the thing that I would test out if I was you. Adrian, you there?
Yeah. That sounds, I never thought of framing it like that way, but I think that sounds like it could potentially be helpful.
I think you'll literally find that you will exhaust yourself with the shame. You'll be literally like, your brain will go, I'm not going to feel shame because I don't feel like doing that stupid activity again. You can use it for more nefarious purposes, but yeah, go ahead, Alyssa.
I was going to say that I think there's That's like a very, I think there's like two ways to unravel this. There's going to be a part of it that's going to be the logic part of it, which is I think what Jimmy's describing is I'm going to drill down on this until it literally doesn't make sense anymore. And I'm like, what the fuck am I doing? And there's other parts of it that are maybe a little bit more emotional that are sort of that like inner child work that people talk about. And I think that that would also be beneficial too, or could be beneficial too. And the two things that I can recommend to you with like the limited information we have, the first one would be to stand in front of a mirror as full length as you have, with as few clothes as you possibly can, and just look and take a look at every, like from head to toe, and really try and appreciate the body that is yours. I think there's a part of the experience that you're describing that makes it feel like your body, your experiences, your sexuality is not yours, certainly not to enjoy. And that's just not true. And so I think sometimes there's like the bodily acceptance that would be helpful. And if you do this as often as you can and take a little bit less, a little bit less, a little bit less off until you're just buck naked in front of the mirror, and it's going to feel sort of silly, but it really is a very emotional experience to be able to look at yourself and accept yourself in the most like basic raw form. And when you can look at yourself in a mirror and say, I love myself, I appreciate myself, this is the body that has carried me through every single one of my challenges up until now, and it will continue to do so. When you can do that and reach like that real level of acceptance, which might take time and effort and energy and whatever, I think it's so much easier to walk into those situations and say, this is what I want. I want to have these experiences with other men, and it's your right. It's your body. You have every right to explore every part of that. And the other part of that would be, if you don't journal already, I highly recommend that you journal. And you can even like Google journal prompts if you want to, if you feel like, I don't know what the fuck I would write. But some journal prompts that I used recently was, it was like, what are the things about me that I want to let go? And what are the things about me that I want to keep? And I think like when you can just get things out of your brain and onto a page, that's also a really lovely way to like release all of that. Because Adrian, you know that what you were taught is not true in your head, but it has to be sort of a connection with your heart too. So there's going to be the part of it, I think, that will be helpful to just drill down until your brain is like, I got it. But there'll be a little bit of it that will be the heart stuff. And that's where I think the other stuff can come into play. And really just giving yourself the time and the permission to explore with yourself and with other people. And when you're having these like dating situations or romantic situations, intimate situations, you can be really open with them and say, like, I've dealt with a lot of purity culture stuff growing up, and so I just need a little bit of patience while I sort of like sort this out. And I think people are much more willing to be empathetic and kind in that, with that framework than we give them credit for.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. But I think like if you have access to therapy, that's always helpful. But there's lots of things that you can do to really like unravel some of that for yourself. But it's going to be like, I think it's important to keep in mind that you have to be patient with yourself, because it's going to take some time. For sure.
Yeah, it's definitely taking a long time. It feels like it took me forever just to get to the point where I came out of the closet and I was like, wow, I'm like 21 now, and now I'm 23, and it's like I still feel like I'm where I was when I was a teenager a lot of times.
Yeah.
Last bit of advice I'd probably give is you probably want to see if you can expand your community to include some people who are very sex positive and sex accepting, because sometimes it's also just being around being around Alyssa and like hearing how forward she is and how much she like makes me more open and more eager to talk about it and makes me feel freer, for example.
Makes me so happy.
Yeah. And I was already pretty free. I've told a lot of stories. And so it definitely helps to expose yourself to people and have friendships with people who feel that way too.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. That was very helpful, I think.
Yeah. Thank you, Adrian.
Bye, Adrian.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Very good. Very good. Last call, and then we will do super chats. Super chat Q&A. Send the super chats, both if you have questions and if you want to support the show. Helps us keep these special projects, HOSTility. And by the way, upcoming episodes of HOSTility, we're already starting to plan out some that will be so far, HOSTility has mostly been like, hey, I'm Jimmy, and this is somebody I like. But soon you'll be seeing, hey, I'm Forrest, and this is somebody I like. And hi, I'm Shannon, and this is somebody. There will be other hosts of HOSTility starting in the very near future. Don't forget that we are launching that more adult version of the line, these more adult themes. That is the Line X. There is a link down in the description. If you try to just Google the Line X, you're going to have a hard time finding it right now. We're waiting for the algorithm to catch up because we just name changed it. The channel was most recently called the Deconstruction Factory, and we just put line clips on there for a while. So if you wanted to find it through the search bar, Deconstruction Factory would get you there faster. But the Line X, the link is down below. It's also youtube.com/@thelinex would also get you there. Anyway, Whisper from Utah, we have you on the line. Oh, I have
howdy.
I have an old Emmanuel name tag programmed in on input 6 here. Hi, Whisper. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm just peachy. We're going to kind of try and get to the call a little bit quickly here just because we're short on time there. So
right.
If you want to go ahead and give us your question, your comment, what you'd like addressed, let's do it.
Let's see. When I grew up in Mormon purity culture, and I also ended up being asexual, and the fact that I grew up in Mormon purity culture delayed my asexuality, combined with a low libido, to the point where I didn't even discover masturbation until 21. I was, to say the least, surprised when I did it by accident.
Yeah.
That's so funny that you were by accident. I can't imagine what that experience was like. You're like, ooh.
I can. I it was much younger, but the first time the first time of the big show, my first climax was not intentional, and took me by surprise for sure.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
Yes,
that's.
It took me years after that to discover that I was in fact asexual, because I wasn't even taught that other sexualities were really a thing. That stuff was kind of like hidden from me when I was younger.
Sure. For sure.
Yeah. In a way that like it is really nice to have access to all different types of people from all different walks of life now, because you know that you're very far from alone being asexual. There's so many people who have that same shared experience. And it's also great that there are ways to have conversations with those communities so you can understand the nuances of everybody's like different and shared experiences, even just within asexuality, because there's so much there that is going to vary from person to person. So I hope that you found like some communities and people who have similar experiences, so that, you know, you can continue on this journey, you know, finding the things that work best for you.
Right. There's just so much variety in just the asexuality spectrum itself. It's amazing. The first time I was basically left alone with an internet connection at like the ripe old age of 21, I started looking into it, and I was like, hey, wait a second. These people on the internet, they're having experiences similar to mine. How come nobody told me this sort of thing was a thing, you know?
Sure.
Yeah,
sure.
100%.
Yeah. What was the I think I might have missed it. Was there what was your question?
Did purity culture affect you in any way in your realization of your own sexuality?
Yeah, Alyssa, you want to go first?
I mean, for me, I was raised in a home that was not too drenched in the purity culture. I think for the most part, what I experienced was the if you're enjoying sexuality or if you appear to be enjoying your sexuality, like whether that's the case or not, you're kind of put into this bucket of like, oh, you're not making the right choices and you're a slut and that's a bad thing, which like, you know, all of that is just not true.
Yeah.
And so I think that was probably like the biggest thing to overcome, to really like understand that no part of anybody's sexuality makes you a bad person. I mean, well, unless you're doing something that's illegal and wrong, then that's different. But people's sexuality just does not really make you a bad person. You can have sex with as many people as you want. You could have sex with as few people as you want, and it bears no meaning to the value that you bring to your own life and the lives of people around you. Like if I had sex with 200 people, it doesn't make me any less of a good friend, good sister, good daughter, like, you know, etc. Like I think the biggest hurdle for me was to really understand how I value myself separate from the assumptions that purity culture would have implied on my sexuality.
Right. For me, it was kind of the opposite. I thought I was expected to have sex in order to be a complete person. Just how do you know you're asexual unless you try it out? So I tried it out. Turns out, don't like it. No, thank you.
Right. Yeah, but I mean, I'm sure that even just knowing that the option and that the like word exists, like knowing that there are other people who are asexual means like, oh my God, great. I have the freedom to actually just let this be who I am. I can't imagine what that experience was like for you. Just, I'm sure it was so liberating. Just be like, oh, thank God.
I was like,
I'm
oh,
sure.
Thank goodness I'm not crazy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank goodness nothing's
100%.
wrong with me. It's just who I am. It's another aspect of sexuality.
Yeah.
100%.
Mormon purity culture is very much thought crime stuff, and that's what the hardest as far as the effect on my sexuality was. It's not just a crime to and it's funny because they would always sort of suggest like there's a difference between being tempted and sinning. So like you being tempted to be aroused at the sight of something isn't wrong, but if you then are aroused, again, mostly we're talking a thought crime, you've now done something wrong. Like the temptation is separate, but the line was always too blurry. And so just the constant feeling of like, I am clearly a hypersexual person. A lot of that may be sort of been amplified by some experiences and stuff from the past and things that maybe if I was born in a sexually healthy environment and had good sexual education when I was younger, it wouldn't surprise me if the hypersexuality would be such a thing. However, that wasn't the case I found myself in. And so, yeah, it was a lot of just feeling constant shame about having sexual identity. And that is what I credit for my non-desire to live when I was younger. And a lot of self-loathing, a lot of hatred, a lot of snapping at people, a lot of wanting to control people, a lot of being very angry, definitely came from what they think is this very almost sweet thing that they're trying. We're just saying you should wait until you love someone so much that you're willing to marry and commit to them, and that's it. You know, it's for that, and also so you can get into heaven because Jesus cares where your pee-pee go. So it's
for some reason.
Yeah, it's sort of that combo.
For some reason, exactly. Like, what? I don't understand. Like, isn't he
We're
busy?
kind of on a speck in a speck in some backwater planet, and this God has the entire universe to play with. Why would he care?
And
why would he care?
He doesn't just have the universe to play with. He's got those new hand holes.
Oh my God.
Anyway, Whisper. Anything else before we let you go?
No, that's it. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you, Whisper.
Thank you.
It's wild. At the beginning of the show, it was hard to get people to call in, I think, because it was embarrassing. By the end of the show, the call-in system, because there's a limit to how many people can be on hold, issued 109 busy signals.
Oh my God.
So yeah, it sort of ended the very opposite. It was hard to get the first calls on, but then once they went, it was a lot. A lot of people.
I feel like it was like that the first time around too. I think once one person is like, all right, I'm going to do it. And then they start asking questions. Everyone else just like starts flowing through.
Makes everyone feel more at ease, I believe.
Yeah.
So we are about to jump to Super Chats. I'm actually really quick fixing the layout of the Super Chat system right now. But we're about to jump to Super Chats. If you want to send in a Super Chat of $5 or more, we will answer your questions, respond to your comments, adopt you into our families, raise you as our own, make you homemade ice cream. I don't know, whatever. But at least some of those things will happen. Probably just the first part, though. So do call in or not call in. Send in those Super Chats of $5 or more. I'm currently fixing the little setup of our layout. For some reason, looks all messed up. I probably broke it. It's usually my fault. And even when it's not my fault, we assume it's my fault. But yeah, how are you feeling right now? Good calls. I felt like there were some very useful ones, and in fact, the person who said they thought they weren't going to get on, I thought was my favorite topic of the night, but I don't even remember what the topic was.
Was that Adrian?
Yeah, I can't remember what I had for breakfast, so I don't remember the topic fully. Maybe I liked it because I got to rant the longest, and I'm just so full of myself that I was like, "Well, this is the best call because it had a lot of me."
You had really good insight there, though. That was very good.
Well done. It means much more to me that I've fooled you into thinking I'm an intellectual than the average person.
That was like one of the first conversations that we had. I think I said, I was like, I wish I could debate things as well as you can. I just don't have enough memory to like recall facts. And you were like, someone's going to figure out that I'm a fraud because I can only debate this one thing.
Yeah. I have a very narrow group. There's a narrow topic. And by the way, thanks for telling everybody.
Well,
there's a very
cat's out of the bag.
I don't have a better word than expertise, but expertise definitely feels like the wrong word. But my debate skill is very topically narrow. And yeah, I sort of say it all the time. Dylan, I'm not going to address your question, Dylan, that you asked in a regular live chat. Please don't super chat about it anymore. But I should tell you that you're actually onto a conspiracy and that it's a part of a greater thing that you'll start to pick up on something that the thing that you're mad about happened for a reason. And eventually there will be future content. Anyway, do send in those super chats now, $5 or more. We will get them up there. I just love having guests like this and topics like this, but we do have to also cover our bills, because if we don't, we have to sell the whole channel to, I don't know, someone who sucks. This was not the right chat. This is from an older show. Let me figure out why I don't have the right one on. Here we go. Boom, boom. There we go. 10 euro from Jordim. I hope that's how that's pronounced. I know you've been on here before, and so I've probably said it like 9 different ways, but Jordim says, is there a reason why genitals, is there a reason why genitals, let's say, don't look too good? Is it just my personal biased opinion that I learned somehow, or is there an actual use to it? Don't look too good. Well, I think they're saying that, Jordan, I think, is saying that they're not attracted specifically to genitals.
Yeah. I mean, there's a few reasons, or a few like ways you could look at this. I think part of it is that we don't ever look at our genitals. So like, unless you're looking at it all the time, it's sort of like a strange alien thing. I think especially for vulva owners, like people who have penises, you have to hold it when you pee, you look at it when you pee, you're looking at that thing all the time. When you have a vulva, you're not really looking at it. And so I think it's mostly just like we aren't exposed to it as much as we think we are. But it's also just organs.
Yeah.
That's all it is. So it's just a body part. So it's just honestly a lot of hearing that these are private parts, a lot of hearing that vaginas are gross and penises are gross. Like it's just years and years and years of hearing it.
It's funny. This is one that I sort of sympathize with because it's interesting. If I'm feeling sexually euphoric, this is where I'm going to be very open. But if I'm feeling like like if I'm in the act with somebody, or even if it's like sexting with someone, I virtually never want to see genitals. It's like only if we get to a point where it's like, oh my God, right now I'm thinking about that. Like, show me where I should put it kind of shit. I have to be in such a state of just like raw animalistic. I want you to have that experience. Tactically, I enjoy them in my fingers, but I enjoy touching, but I don't really particularly love looking at genital. And so I've always not understood this idea of like, regardless of gender, why would you try to say hello? Why would you try to open with a genital pic? Like that was never going to work. Generally, I'm going to find any type of nude rude, but if you want at least the 1 second where I delay before I delete and block you, don't start below the waist. It's all about torsos in the polite, unsolicited nude world, which there is no such thing. Don't send unsolicited nudes. But if you're gonna.
Oh my God. I will say in the amount of time that I've spent now doing all of this work, I think vulvas are beautiful now. Like I really do. Like they're so pretty. And they also, when they get erect and they fill with blood, they change colors. Did you know that?
It's beautiful.
They get like purpley and pink and red, like all of the pretty colors. I think that's so nice. I think it's really that we're not exposed to it enough.
Yeah. So go look at more vulvas, everybody.
You could go on Instagram, the vulva gallery. You could look at pictures of vulvas all day long.
It's easy to find vulvas these days. There's databases of vulvas. So many vulvas.
Vulvas for days.
I had one more thought and I lost it. And I think it was going to be the funniest line of the night, but I lost it.
Damn.
Yeah. Something about sex and genitals and I don't know. I lost it. It's gone. All right. Sorry, everyone. You're all very disappointed in me. $19.99 from Christian Miller. I aspire to be as passionate as Forrest was when kissing a homie. It was very, very sweet. When we were joking about doing it, I was like, all right, let's make sure that we're addressing the elephant in the room. Technically, you could call me. I wouldn't say I'm not his employer because most of his income comes from other places. However, I do pay Forrest. Forrest does a job for which I employ him. So I guess in a way, it's our relationship is one in which I'm like, so I just want to make sure as we're talking about this gag and how silly and funny and cute it's going to be that this isn't in any way I've got to kiss my boss and I don't want to. By the way, the joke was when we came up together. It wasn't, oh my God, do you know what'd be so funny? What if you just like came over here and gyrated on my dick? It wasn't anything like that. It was very much a like, let's do something like, let's make it silly where I like sort of, we don't address it. But anyway, the whole joke got killed because I'm not sure that on the first attempt, you could even see it was him in the frame. Of when he like kissed me and I like looked over and I saw that it was cropped poorly and I was like, shit, I don't know. Forrest is the best though. He's a cool dude. I very much enjoyed hanging out with him and his wife. And then we also, Matt and Arden and old Johnny Angel. We all got to chill together last night. And that was a great time. And then they stopped by the house today. Anyway, Kathleen Moncrief says for 1069, my internet is sketchy tonight, so I'm sneaking in a super chat while I can to prevent you from having to sell the show to Transform Wife. Go fuck yourself, Jimmy. Yeah, you're all right. If we don't make enough we got to sell the show to Transform Wife. Lori's gonna get the show, everybody. She's gonna get it.
Not Lori. Lori.
Unless she gets outbid by biblical gender roles. Okay, it's gonna be one of the two of them.
What cracks me up about Lori the most is that she's like an avid Twitter user. Like that is so funny to me. Is Twitter of God? I think of all of the platforms, Twitter is the least godly platform you could possibly be on.
Yeah. That's why there's never been a girl defined video that was called how to go on Twitter in a godly way, in a God honoring way. They can't make that video.
In a God honoring way.
Yeah. That one's done. Some of the like titles that people have made off of that. There was a video on, I want to say it was on Pornhub, but somebody sent me a screenshot of it. Not that I wouldn't have been on Pornhub, just not this time. They sent me a screenshot of it, and the person had titled the video something like "How to Slay Pussy in a God Honoring Way," and it was,
oh my God, amazing!
Too funny, too fucking funny. Anyway, but just so you know, people tell me to go fuck myself. The short version of the story is, lots of compliments were coming in on super chats one night. I kept having to read them. And then I basically was like, y'all, I would be way more comfortable if you would tell me to go fuck myself. Compliments make me very uncomfortable. And now it's a meme on the channel. It's the whole thing.
I love it.
Now if somebody does tell me to go fuck myself and they mean it, I have no idea. I just assume they love me.
It's self-preservation.
That's true. We did hit this question a bit, though this is more from the libido end. I have zero libido due to medications I take. Any remedy for that? So again, first check doctors, but also...
Also, there are lots of different things that you could do. You could do any of like the vulva hug, looking in the mirror exercise. There are lots of things like that. You can also, if it's, I guess it's less of the, not as much the sensation thing and more the libido thing, I would... First of all, you don't need to have libido all the time. Sometimes it's okay if there are periods of time where you just don't feel like having sex. It just happens, whether it's a medication thing or not. But what has helped me in the past is honestly to make the foreplay more interesting and more fun. So whether it's like a date night or doing something like cooking together, or again, like the massages thing is like the best because it's a self-care, it's a caring thing for one another. It relaxes you, and you're also touching the person. Things like that I think are really helpful. I think one of the things that has always bothered me about as we've gotten older and like old enough where sex has sort of like just been assumed to be on the table, is when you kiss someone, if you kiss them for like too long, too much, and like too well, they just assume that you want to have sex with them, and then it's going to happen. And I hated that. I hate that. And so I think if you have like a really hot makeout sesh, that could get some of the juices flowing too. But also, sometimes it's just taking sex off the table sometimes helps.
I'm watching the moment. I was going to try and I'm trying to freeze it because some people weren't here for it. I'm watching the moment at the beginning of the show, and it's just making me...
Oh.
Forrest laying one on me. And keeping it there for a while. That was a long kiss.
Oh, yeah. He meant it.
That was a big one.
He meant it.
I was going to try and show it off, but anyway, that was by the way, everything you just said, I can multitask. I was listening, and I just agree, and I can prove it. You can quiz me. I feel like it sounds like I'm lying. Quiz me. I dare you. I dare you.
I don't even, honestly, I'm so tired. I don't even know what I would quiz you on. Wait, but somebody in the chat said,
no, I'm kidding. I was.
Somebody in the chat said it's not called missionary position because it's exciting. That's funny.
Man, I don't
hate missionary though. I'll be honest.
Oh, I don't hate missionary either. But I think there are versions of positions that people by standard expect how to do that they don't realize. Like if you tweak it, the best ways are. So one of the ones, for example, that is one that, oh man, I feel like this can't turn into the positions show, but obviously, like the two positions everybody thinks is penis person on top versus penis person on bottom. We are talking about sort of penis and vagina sex here. And I feel like everybody does both wrong. Like for the most part, it's like there are such ways to position and enhance. And like anybody who, every time somebody's like, I like being on top, but it just makes my thighs really sore. And I'm like, well, you're doing it wrong then, because you shouldn't be lifting and going. It's about a you point it away, and then there's a thing, and it should actually be the grinding of the hips that is happening that is causing the insertion of the. Anyway, it's a whole. I've coached many people.
It shouldn't be this. It should be in and that sort of thing.
It still causes that, though at an angle that also rubs in the right places just right. And by the way, okay. The penis shouldn't be pointed this way, and it shouldn't be pointed toward the face. It should be pointed down. If you're doing it correctly, which causes way more clitoral stimulation, and it's incredible.
Well, it'll be different for everybody.
No, this is the right way. I'm just kidding.
Okay. Jimmy.
Calm down. Jimothy Snow.
But a little like pillow under the small of your back does wonders. But also in the porn world, they call that calibrating. Isn't that funny?
No, I had no idea.
And that's like one of my most viral TikToks was when I explained the calibrating thing.
Yeah, that's like the number one thing is it's literally like, y'all know, like you can do easy things to make things line up better and easier and go more places. It's just
you just gotta think out of the box.
And then think out of the box so you can think better in the box. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, that's good.
That's real good. I'm an idiot. I'm so stupid.
That's why he produces this show.
Because I'm good at puns? That's true, actually.
The big bucks. Why does my hand look like the hand of a Victorian woman that's literally never been outside? I look sick.
I'm not trying to seduce anybody, but I am going to pull down my shirt a little bit. You want to talk white? This is you can see
you're so white, you're pink.
If my hair was shaved, you would just see veins. You can see through my skin.
Yuck.
And I will never get a tan. You can't make me.
I'm not going in the sun.
No, fuck that.
No.
I hate the
Certainly
sun.
Not.
I overheat too easily. It actually makes me pretty sick too. Anyway.
God.
Game Master $10 says, love the idea of a show that explores these topics being a regular thing and the education it brings to people. Let's expel the shame. Much love, Alyssa. Fuck you, Jimmy. So much and so hard. I feel like you got a little horny there at the end, Game Master. I feel like you're going to horny jail. Not really. We're not going to ban you or block you, but that was a pretty horny message at the end. Unless
I love it.
So much and so hard. It's hard to say and not feel a little horned after.
It's great.
Just LOL says higher sexual partners is highly correlated with higher levels of depression, loneliness, and even suicidality. Also higher rates of divorce and cheating. So just LOL, I have to assume, is some sort of troll who is coming in. Guess what? Being queer is also higher related to higher suicidality and depression. Does that make being queer wrong? No, it's because we live in a fucking society that stigmatizes it. So higher partners. Go ahead. Sorry.
I've never heard that. I've never heard of the statistic before, so I am almost positive it's just made up. But if this were to be true,
I think it is. Actually
it would.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So if this is true, it's because people who have more sexual partners are told that they are bad and wrong and shameful and gross.
Exactly. It's everybody. They do this with trans people. They do this with queer people. Oh, obviously you shouldn't be trans because that increases the odds you will be suicidal. They're suicidal because you treat them like fucking shit. Society is what forces this. Everything you just said does not have to be. It's so fucking stupid. Case. But let's go back in time to when, divorce was lower because women didn't have the choice to leave men.
Yes, and because they didn't know that there was more available to them. So one of my favorite things now is like I'm on a side of TikTok where I see a lot of women who are like really asking for partners in life versus like passive men just in their homes. And they're really asking for partnership and to say like I'm drawing the line if you can't just meet me halfway at whatever these tasks are. And so even in like this circumstance, like if I know that I have had really amazing sex with a partner that like really gave me like the effort, the time, the intimacy that I was looking for, and then I get married to someone who doesn't want to do any of that for me, why would I stay?
Yeah.
Why would I say?
Yep.
Of course, there's a lot more involved, but if you boil it down to just sex, as this person has.
Yeah, it's literally, wow. So you're saying people in societies get depressed when they are attacked by things? Crazy. Wow.
Right.
I'm so surprised.
Right.
$4.99 from Anabolic Boy. And this is a somewhat loaded question, but when is porn is what P stands for, unhealthy in a marriage? Oh. It's harder to answer. Posing things with the negative means that the answer is a billion pages long. When the actual answer is you and your partner have to decide that. But can I give you 1,000 examples of a time this wouldn't have been healthy and this wouldn't have been healthy and this wouldn't have been healthy? You and your partner have to decide that. But anyway, you're welcome to take it if you think you can answer it. Not 5,000 ways.
Part of it is like, if it depends on what you and your partner agree to. But there's a lot of sort of back and forth on if porn addiction is really like an addiction classified the way that other addictions are. That's the way it was treated in the past. And now they're sort of moving away from that model. Yeah. So I think because porn involves so much more than a like something happening, you're getting this like dopamine rush, and then you're just like doing the same thing over and over again. There's so much more like emotional stuff that goes into it. It's a very nuanced question. I think as long as you are staying dedicated to your partner and it's not interfering with your everyday life, it doesn't feel unhealthy to me.
Sure. Yep.
Yeah.
Candace Crosby says, this was wholesome and much needed content. Not all of it was wholesome, but it was still awesome.
I was going to
say. Thank you both. I can't wait for the next one. Love and light to y'all. All right.
Sweet.
Rebus Win for 669 says, I think purity culture is more a sexism thing than a religion thing. I grew up in religion-free area, still see purity culture based on pseudoscience. It's hard to say because so many people... The thing is if it could all be religion-based, even though not everybody's religious, because it could still be sourced from the religious world, and sort of like the way when a lot of people leave their religion, they still hold on to some beliefs that they think aren't related to that religion. Like, you know, when I left Mormonism, I still was like on the right wing side of the political equation, and was like, well, but that's unrelated because my politics are still based in, and then eventually you deconstruct that too. And as a society, it's hard to say because clearly we see secular sources of sexism. It's impossible to avoid. Go ahead.
Even the purity culture stuff that you find from a religious influence is sexist. Like it's all about putting the women in a position where they don't have any power and they are like these whatever. What's that Jeff Warren thing? Was it keep sweet or something that he would say?
Whatever that gross. Warren Jeffs.
You don't know
you mean Warren
Jeffs?
Yeah, okay. Yeah. But he would say something like,
I think it was keep sweet.
Yeah.
Like that sort of whatever mentality. I think it is all sexism in some way, shape, or form.
Right. It's basically, I guess the direction I was taking it is sort of, let's say the world, instead of adopting religion, had adopt something closer to secular humanism. Would sexism would we still have played out such severity and ubiquitous purity culture everywhere, despite the fact that there are different religions and stuff? And so the question, I guess it's like chicken or the egg. Did or did religious sexism cause purity culture, or did sexism cause religious purity culture? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Very chicken or the egg. $5 from Quagma TV. Thanks for taking my call. I'm Whisper. Always neat to hear others' experience with Mormon purity culture. Shows I'm not alone in the trauma. Oh, yeah. Fucking Mormonism will fuck you
Far
up.
from it.
Yeah. And not in the good way. Fucking you up, I mean. Eddie Dean, $5 says, since the wife passed a little over 2 years ago, I've had 3 women in my bed. Each time I've dealt with low arousal and high anxiety. Any advice? Don't feel 2 years is You don't need to be down after like 2 years is not that long. That it may take just time.
I would also encourage you to, that's not very long. So be patient with yourself, but I would also encourage you to try to have sex in places that are not your home, because even if it's not the same place that you lived with your wife, being with a new woman in like a cohabitating space for you might make it just challenging. So I would, if you have the means and you meet someone, you really like them, see if you can get like a fun hotel room and make like a night of it. Like you could order room service if you want, or go to dinner or whatever, but really like take that opportunity to make that night something special for you, so that when you're starting to like rewire what your sexuality and what those sexual experiences are like for you, so that it's not so tied to your wife, who I'm very sorry has passed away.
Yeah. And I know specifically with anxiety, this is general anxiety advice, externalizing your anxiety is one of the number one ways people treat it. So if you're with somebody that you can actually tell them like, hey, you should know, and I think it's probably related to this, but I'm in a high state of anxiety right now. Sometimes just saying that cuts it down by like 70%. Just the fact that someone outside of your brain knows you're having these physical responses. Unfortunately, a lot of drugs for anxiety don't make sex better. There might be some though that work, but like I stopped taking beta blockers when I was like, boners would be dope to have again.
Boners would be dope.
That'd be dope. It'd be dope to have a boner. Yeah, they are. It is. They are.
That's funny.
They are not fun. It's not a fun thing to combo with your penis.
Hilarious.
Emery King says, can you talk a bit about purity culture and how some people who fight against it accidentally engage in ace phobia? Go fuck yourself, Jimmy. Well, that's gym phobia. Just so you know. Just kidding.
Gym phobia.
Take it the love. Is this a topic you've hit very much?
I don't know what ace phobia is.
Sort of like, basically being shitty to asexual people. And the two ways that I've seen it happen overlap with purity culture is probably, the first way isn't probably what Emery's talking about. The one that I think is the most significant thing that ace people face is because you're taught, especially ace AFAB people, Emery, you're entirely androgynous in your photo, so I don't know whether this applies to you, but ace AFAB people often don't realize they're ace when they don't like having sex. They've been taught to expect that. And so it's sort of like, I've heard now tons and tons of stories of like, basically I kept letting someone fuck me and I hated it for this number of years because I thought it was my duty. Turns out I'm just ace. Or the even more tragic, turns out I'm gay and I was fucking somebody that doesn't match my orientation. The other form of ace phobia would be this projection of like, if you're trying to overcompensate for purity culture, which overcompensating for purity culture happens in a lot of different ways. But one of the ways that specifically affects ace people would be the insistence that everyone be sexual and sort of the like, no, we're all super sexual. And if you're not super sexual, that actually is what makes you a freak. And so sort of that feeling of being a freak because somebody, thank you for sharing that. Emery said, "Hello, I'm AFAB." I wasn't trying to get you to out yourself if you or anything like that. You certainly can. I hope you were comfortable sharing that and didn't feel like you had to. But yeah, it's sort of the in a room full of now sexually liberated people. If you're still an asexual person and everybody's talking about how, this is now the truest form of humanity is to unlock and be sexual as much as you like, that then it's almost like the same way that people who still dress modestly after deconstructing from purity culture, but they actually still are comfortable dressed modestly, can feel like people are judging them for not exposing themselves more and such. Sort of the same thing of like, I'm not having your sexual experience as a sexually liberated person, and people can project that outward and make those people feel not very good about themselves. So you shouldn't do that. Remember, asexual people exist. Religion already has ignored the fact that they exist for fucking all of time. So don't Don't, in your sexual liberation, also forget that asexual people exist. Any thoughts you'd like to add? Okay.
No, I think you wrapped that up perfectly in a bow.
Thank you. That's it. That's the end of the show. So after the show, Alyssa and I are gonna record just a short. Oh, there's actually one more chat. I'll bring it back up in a second. But Alyssa and I are gonna record a short little ditty that will be for my personal channel's patrons. The Jimmy Snow Patreon. I think it's patreon.com/Mr. Atheist. And then at some point, we'll probably give it in the next couple of weeks. We'll probably also give it to the patrons of the line. But that is a little special exclusive thing that you can get by giving more money. And I just want to talk to you a little bit about religious upbringing and stuff like that. If you're comfortable with it, we'll do all that after the show. Last super chat here, I think last one, is from Rebus Wind. I grew up in China. Not a lot of religious influence. People still hold strong purity culture, stronger than the U.S. probably, due to objectifying women. Many people call themselves sex misophobia and proud of it. Yeah, and so clearly it still exists. I mean, I would still argue that there are historical patriarchal systems rooted in very religious things, even in modern day China. And so again, I could still chicken or the egg with it, but I think you're quite right to identify clearly they have figured out a way to be perfectly sexist assholes without religion. They've fucking misogyny finds a way. That was a reference to Jurassic Park. Anyway, Alyssa, do you want to tell people one more time where they can find you and we'll call it a night?
Sure. You can find me on Instagram and on TikTok. My usernames for both are Alyssa Ljub, Ljub. And you can listen to my podcast. It comes out every Tuesday. It's called Alyssa Explains It All. You can listen to Jimmy's episode of the podcast, which was a couple of weeks ago. And there's lots of porn stars, sex professionals, and just all around great people.
Fuck yeah.
On there. And I'll be on the line more regularly. TBD.
Very excited. Thank you everyone for joining. That's it for us tonight. Links to everything Alyssa just mentioned down in the description. And, I should have a sign off, but I don't. So the sign off is,
so bye.
Where's my outro button?